Happy Thursday, everybody. Good news. We are trending sort of everywhere. We are number 7 on Apple Podcasts overall. We are number 10 overall on Spotify podcasts. And this is just the first week of the show, only episode 4. So exciting. But we are also trending all over Twitter and on the internet and on YouTube because I had an appearance on Piers Morgan last night. It was supposed to go for 30 minutes, but it went for an hour and a half. And this is what happened.
Why did you leave the Daily Wire? A lot of attention's been focused on you constantly referencing Christ is King. But to deliberately use that phrase was a deliberate act of provocation to people like Ben Shapiro.
I want every single person in the world to declare Christ as King, whether you believe them to be a Nazi, a white supremacist, a Jew, a Muslim. It is the phrase itself that I want declared.
Who do you want to win the war, Ukraine or Russia?
I don't want Zelensky to win. I don't want Putin to win. I believe Zelensky is just as corrupt. I believe he is a criminal. What percentage of a population has to be killed before we can use the word genocide? It's a funny little thing. They won't tell you.
She said here, I would stake my entire professional reputation on the fact that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man. With that statement, your entire professional reputation goes up in smoke.
Burn. You got me. You go, girlfriend.
I'll bet you $100,000 right now that it is established beyond any doubt that she was born a woman. Do you accept the bet, Candace?
Whoa. No. At best, Brigitte Macron is a pervert. Ooh, he came for me last night, you guys. And guess what? I went right back at him. It really is a lesson in how the media works, how the media is constantly operating on our minds. And that is what we are going to get into today on Candace. All right, so we've been talking a lot about psychology this week, and it truly is the name of the game. When people hit at that figurative matrix, the matrix, what is it that they're actually alluding to? What they're alluding to is the idea that there is an entire system, an illusory system really, that has been created for us, that we are virtually enslaved to this system and that our every action is being dictated by it, and that the majority of us are completely asleep to it. And so you wonder, how could that be? How could that be possible? How could my actions be being informed by some system? And the answer, of course, is psychology. As I said yesterday and the day before, there are forces that are impacting your psyche every moment of every single day. And the biggest contributor to that is, of course, the media black magic. So yeah, yesterday I joined Piers Morgan. The team told me it's going to be 30 minutes. We're going to talk about some things, promote your show. And of course, I already knew it was not going to just be 30 minutes. I knew he was going to throw absolutely everything at me. But I went anyways because I think it's important for people all around the world to see that you don't have to fall for these government and media initiatives. You can stand on what you believe and you can survive. And so, yes, it has been trending all over the internet. And I want to bring for you guys, in case you don't have an hour and a half to dedicate to me and Piers Morgan, really the top 5 moments. So let's jump right into it. Moment number 1, and of course I was expecting this, the mandatory Israel question. I don't know what this is, but apparently it's some sort of a religious sacrament that every media member has to go on and on and on about Israel. You would literally think that I was an Israeli citizen, that we are all Israeli citizens. It doesn't make sense to me and many other people across the world why there is such an obsession and a focus on this country in the Middle East. They almost try to penalize you, to punish you for not focusing on it. And so, yes, of course, Piers Morgan came right to the table and tried to pretend that it was suspicious that I didn't tweet for days when a terrorist attack happened on a foreign country's soil. Take a listen.
And here's where I'm just curious about your tweeting through this procedure, this whole war, because on October the 7th, you didn't tweet anything. You didn't tweet anything on October the 8th. And October the 9th, you tweeted, so much world peace ever since we got the orange man out of office. So glad the adults are back in charge. A lot of people say, well, if you care this much about innocent people being killed, why didn't you say anything when 1,200 people were massacred to death in the most brutal, barbaric manner in this awful terror attack by Hamas, and nearly 7,000 more were wounded, some of them catastrophically and irreparably. Why did that not compel you to say anything?
Well, first and foremost, Israel's a foreign country. So typically I talk about topics that have to do with America. Secondly, you're only quoting my Twitter feed. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. I also had a daily podcast in which I did respond directly about what happened and called the events horrific. Multiple times said what Hamas did was absolutely horrific. So you're using a snapshot of my Twitter feed where you're acknowledging that I didn't tweet for days to suggest that I didn't have anything to say about what had happened. Now, to be clear, I am consistent on all matters. I do not want America involved whatsoever in anything that is happening in Israel. I don't want my dollars sent over to Israel. We should not be supporting Israel. Obviously, Thomas Massey has done a lot of work showing how it doesn't even make economic sense that we have so much debt and yet we're sending money over to support Israel. And the biggest issue, by the way, that I have with Israel in talking about them being above reproach is the fact that they are supplying the arms to murder Christians. Okay. In Armenia, the oldest Christian country in the world, and yet nobody talks about that. For whatever reason, it seems to be the circumstance that when Jewish people die in Israel, it's wall-to-wall coverage. But when Christians die all over the world, nobody talks about it. Everyone wants to correlate everything to World War II. Everyone wants to talk about Adolf Hitler, and rightfully so, he was a horrific person. But nobody wants to talk about Henryk Yagoda, right? Nobody wants to talk about the Bolsheviks. Nobody wants to talk about the Christian Holocaust. I am tired of the media, exhausted of the media not speaking about what is happening to Christians all around the world. And it is especially horrific while at the exact same time that it is happening, the slaughter of Christians in Armenia, the arms being supplied by Israel, that the media turns the other way and says, oh, okay, but what about what's happening in Israel? So you know what I'm asking for? Actual equality. Okay, because it seems like this is like a special category, the special relationship that we have. I'm a Christian first, okay? And so my concerns are going to be with what's happening to Christians all around the world because it is us. We are the number one most persecuted religion in the world. And all Christians watching this need to realize the time is now to start speaking up because we have been silenced about the things that are happening to us for a very long time. And the media is very clearly not our friend. When there is wall-to-wall coverage of Christians being killed, in Armenia, Christians being killed in Nigeria, and the treatment of Christians in America and all across the globe today, then you ask me if I will use my platform and I will use my voice to speak about what's happening in Israel. How about that? How about that, Piers? And I'll tell you how about it went. Well, he obviously ended that part of the conversation immediately because there are aggressive double standards here. The idea that you can say to someone, why don't you use your platform to talk about this? You know, I scrolled through Piers' feed and it turns out that no, when Armenian Christians are being killed and being bombed, and it is a fact that Israel is supplying the arms to do that, Piers doesn't have anything to say. So why is he prioritizing Israel? He can't answer that question, so he wants to move on. It is constantly this effort to manipulate you into focusing your life and your attention on whatever they decide to press their thumbs down on. And it's not right. And that is my belief. I am a Christian. Of course, I'm going to use my Twitter feed. I'm going to dedicate my Twitter feed to things that are of interest to me. That is my right. I'm also an American. And I recognize when we look around that Americans can't afford gas, they can't afford groceries. And why can't we? Because, well, we have the media convincing us that it is our job to be enslaved economically to the borders and the interests of everybody else, but ourselves, but our families. And I don't stand for that. So what does he do? He moves on to, of course, what I also expected, trying to paint and accuse everyone of being a conspiracy theorist. What I instantly did is I threw it right back at him because as we all understand, as we are living in this post-mainstream media world, they are the conspiracy theorists. How many times has the mainstream media tried to effectively sell us something only for time to pass and us to realize they were lying about everything? And when they're caught lying about everything, they just try to backtrack. And remarkably, I said to Piers, yeah, no, you peddled the BLM and the race conspiracy theories, and then you backpedaled. You peddled the COVID conspiracy theories, and then you backpedaled. And he didn't like that so much. No. He tried to backpedal even further. Take a listen.
So do not take my one clarification about the ability of a vaccine to prevent transmission as being some great mea culpa that I think...
That's a huge mea culpa, Piers.
Well,
that's a huge mea culpa. That's a huge mea culpa, because that means that you let people to go out and to get an experimental vaccine in their arm and encourage them not to listen to independent voices that were saying, hold on. That's a huge mea culpa. People died from the vaccine. So you're talking about people that died from not getting it. There have been scores of people who died from the vaccine. There have been scores of people like my grandfather who got the vaccine and then were dead within 1 year because it led to their dementia suddenly spreading or advancing rather in a way. Stop. I let you speak about your mea culpa.
You do not know that was down to the vaccine, do you?
Okay. First and foremost, they have admitted so much. They lied about the 6 feet social distancing. That just came out 2 weeks ago. And you were on the side of all of these people. So don't pretend that that's a small mea culpa. People died from blood clots pertaining to the vaccines that you were telling them to rush out and get, okay?
People died
had they have waited and perhaps listened to independent voices who understood that there was some government... No, I let you talk. I let you talk about your mea culpa. Had they have paused and listened to independent voices who have, I think, probably a greater strength when it comes up to standing up to government initiatives, because we recognize that the government is not our friend, and we recognize that the government is not trying to save our lives. Maybe those people would be alive. Maybe my friends who had miscarriages and my friends who were saying that it was impacting their menstruation until the government was ready to admit that 7 months later. If you had listened to people that were telling you their own experiences, someone I know that went completely blind in one eye because of some weird ocular clots. So don't pretend that's a small thing. I just want to say, I'm happy to accept that you've changed your mind.
Let me respond.
But don't pretend it's a small thing. People died from the vaccine.
Let me respond.
And by the way, I want to be clear for people watching this. He's saying still get it. I'm saying still don't. Just so you can hear a different opinion, do not allow the government to put that in your arm.
Okay.
God's system works. The government is not fixing you in any regard. Honestly, he didn't know what to do with that. I mean, they are so used to being able to spike the ball. The experts, that's actually how he began it. I should have showed you that portion as well. But he starts talking about how the experts, confirmed and the scientific studies confirmed. And he's just making a small mea culpa. He went out and told everyone to go get the vaccine because he thought, as he says, that it would stop transmission. And then he realized after the fact that it didn't. It was just a small mea culpa. A small mea culpa, telling people to roll up their sleeves and to inject something into their arm, just a small one, in which people had reactions to, in which they routinely lied. In fact, they treated us people who said don't get the vaccine like lepers. The people that did not want to get vaccines were treated like lepers. And he very much continues that if you want to go watch this full conversation when he starts pressing me in general about my perspective on vaccines. And I've been very clear. I'm not going to lie and run from who I am. I do not vax my children, okay? I dedicated an entire show to diving into the history of vaccines because what happened during COVID, the first time people woke up to the idea that an entire ecosystem can be telling you something that is untrue, that has been going on actually for a long time. And so my job is to give people information. And of course, his job is to pretend it's all a conspiracy theory until the conspiracy theory is proven true. Which brings us, of course, to Brigitte Macron. It was trending. Piers Morgan threw down the gauntlet. He said, $100,000, Candace, to prove that Brigitte Macron is a man. Now, of course, he did this for a little bit of theater. And what he offered was, Brigitte Macron is suing the journalist that worked on the story for 3 years with genealogists and showed that Brigitte Macron simply didn't exist for 30 years. But her brother, Jean-Michel Trogneux, did exist for 30 years. And then her brother disappeared and Brigitte Macron suddenly arrived. And the two of them have never been seen together. And she refuses to answer any questions or to produce a simple photograph of herself. But the job is, of course, to make it look like these journalists and Candace telling about the story. That is so crazy. No, what's crazy is how easy it is to debunk the story, but to instead be taking people to court. So listen to what Piers Morgan had to say about that.
Where is your evidence that Brigitte Macron is transgender?
Well, I did an entire series talking about where this came from. And first and foremost, you're pretending that I'm the one that promulgated this. In fact, it was 3 journalists in France that worked on the story for 3 years. Right. And they teamed up with genealogists and they came across, and it was absolutely fascinating. I read the entire report, and everybody watching this, rather than listen to Piers Morgan giving you a bunch of adjectives, ridiculous, it's awful, I can't believe that she's saying this. Why don't you go pursue a primary source? Why don't you go find the articles that were written by the French journalists? Because this did not come from me. This came from French journalists. And while they were working, let me finish the statement, Piers. While they were working on this piece, the Macrons sent their secret service to interrupt this. This is not a normal thing that you do when somebody's about to publish a lie. You would just say it's ridiculous, publish it, and we'll dispute it. They sent the secret service to intimidate these journalists. They took their phones. They held them. They wanted to know everyone who was working on the piece. And what they uncovered was absolutely fascinating. What they uncovered was the fact that Brigitte Macron, who alleges that the person that they are saying is her is actually her brother, who's never been seen and who they never produced, that Brigitte Macron lived as a man for 30 years and then transitioned at the age of 30. So he's trying to tell you this is crazy, this is wacky. Why don't you just go pursue a primary source?
Well,
I'm not the primary source. It would be very easy to dispute this. All Brigitte Macron would have to do is produce a single photo of her in the first 30 years of her life, or to go on a little walk with her brother, who she alleges that she is not.
Show me the proof Donald Trump isn't transgender.
There's tons of photos of Joe Biden growing up.
I think Donald Trump was born a woman. Show me the proof.
Okay, there are tons of photos of Trump 20 years ago on Oprah. What are you saying?
And as a mother,
it's 30
yourself.
years of living. Just show a photo of yourself. We don't need to be debating it. Just show a photo of yourself.
And as a mother yourself, you have no qualms about the hurt that you're causing her kids with this kind of claptrap.
I mean, please stop with the sensitivity. You've decided that you want to lead a country, okay? Honesty is demanded. More journalists should be prodding into the story internationally to see what's actually going on here, because at best, you have a perverted story that, in my view, leads way too closely into pedophilia. Just the story of how they got together is weird. You have a allegedly gay man, the person who's had gay affairs with him has spoken out, talked about the drugs that he has done with Macron, and you have these two people who are utterly demented leading the state of France. That, my friends, is how you stand on business, okay? You're not going to gaslight the public. I saw this clip, actually, and I can't find it on the internet, but it was just the Tate brothers, and they were talking about how wrong all of the experts and all the scientists were on COVID. So how is it possible that so many people from the wrong side of the tracks, the Tate brothers, Candace Owens, got it right on COVID, not the experts? And what they implied is just all you have to do is live a little, right? A little bit of street smarts goes a very long way. All these people and their degrees, do they have street smarts? Have you lived a little? Is it a normal thing if somebody is working on a story alleging that you lived as a man for 3 years? If someone right now called and said, the Daily Mail is working on an article that you lived as a man, Candace, for 30 years, do you think I'm going to call the police and the FBI to get involved in the story? Using the arm of the French Secret Service to go intimidate the journalists, to hold them in a cell, take their phones, ask who else is working on the story. That does not make me think that you are innocent. That's nonsense. I would be like, publish the story so I can debunk it, because you just don't go 30 years without having your photo taken. You just don't go 30 years plus saying that you've had 3 kids without having your photo taken. It doesn't work that way, okay? I'd say, here you go. Here's my high school yearbook, my middle school yearbook. Here's me as a baby. Here's me with my family. Here is a litany of photos that you can look through to establish the fact that the person who published this article is an absolute kook. But they aren't doing that. What they're doing is they're getting the media journalists to say, oh, it's so crazy. I remember Barry Weiss actually tweeted from the New York Times and pretending to be independent. So crazy that she said this about Brigitte. Stop using adjectives to describe people who have common sense, okay? Present the proof. You should just say, Brigitte, one photo. And when they actually presented one photo, it ended up being Brigitte's daughter, Tefan. Okay, there is a story there. The French people have been trying to get it out for years, and the fact that they are using the court systems to intimidate journalists is not a good thing. So, like I said, when they use these sorts of tactics, you have to stand up to them. And of course, this brings me to the last moment, which I just love so much, is when they've really got nothing left, they always do this appeal to authority. And Piers Morgan wanted to remind me that he has degrees in journalism. He is a reporter, a real reporter. And who am I? Take a listen.
Here's the difference between me and you. I've actually been a reporter for many, many years. You never have. So when you say you report on these things, I can tell you no journalist who's an actual reporter would read a legal filing and then do a tweet which states as fact in their own words, he's not in jail because he's a Fed CIA asset. Can you try to tell everyone? That's not reporting on a lawsuit. That is stating your own personal opinion. And if you don't know the difference, it's because you're not a reporter. I am.
Well, now we've arrived at your professionality. I guess, Piers, tell me more. What school did you go to? Tell me more.
I went to Harlow Journalism College in Essex in England.
Well, then we better listen to you guys. You heard him. We got to trust the experts. And Piers has been a reporter, and he went to a journalistic law school. And therefore, whatever conclusions he makes are the professional and the correct ones. And you should definitely listen to Piers Morgan.
I do know the difference between reporting on a lawsuit where you're one removed from the contents of a lawsuit and stating something as fact. But I don't think you do because you've never actually been a reporter. That's my point.
Ooh, burn. You got me. You go, girlfriend. Girlfriend did get me. I'm going to start talking to you guys like that. You're not a reporter. Yes, you're not a reporter watching this show. You're not a reporter. What do you know about anything? You're not a reporter. Have you lived? Doesn't matter. I'm a reporter. I know things. I know how to read the lawsuits and what's to do with them. And this, my friends, is why the mainstream media has fallen apart. Constantly speaking down to people, making assumptions about people, talking about, I went to Harlow College and I've got a degree in journalism. Yeah, Piers, well, as a reporter, you should know that you probably shouldn't get all of your information from Wikipedia. I didn't take the bait. I didn't respond to him. But the facts of the matter are, I, too, also have a degree in journalism. In fact, I have more degrees than Piers Morgan does. I have a bachelor's degree in journalism and in English, and he just has one in journalism. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, which is why I didn't say it. But it is funny. He's a reporter. Lastly, and I think this really was my favorite part, when he went on this whole bit talking about Taylor Swift being wonderful because, of course, you must also sacrifice yourself to Hollywood. Hollywood's so amazing and she's great. And he told me he was taking his daughter to a Taylor Swift concert. He didn't understand how I didn't view her to be a feminist icon. She's got so much money. She's got so much success. Of course, every woman should be measuring themselves according to how much money they have in their bank, right? No. Take a listen.
Who's your idea of a feminist icon in the music business?
Feminist icon. I think feminism sucks, but a woman that is someone to look after. My grandma.
No, in the music business. Who's the one?
I think Hollywood's demonic, so I don't model myself after people in Hollywood. Just my grandma and all of the stay-at-home moms who give every bit of themselves every day to their children. Those are my icons. Those are my feminist icons.
Fair enough.
He had to let that one go too because he's never heard it. What do you mean you don't have a celebrity crush? What do you mean you don't have a feminist icon? What do you mean you don't think Hollywood is amazing? I don't. I think it's lame. I think the media is lame. And I have way more fun looking and being inspired by the tons of women who listen to this podcast, the men who listen to this podcast, listening to people who actually strive toward having good values. And what it means to have good values means to put faith and to put family first. And it begs the question, what kind of a future do you want to leave for your children? A life of freedom, peace, prosperity? We know, especially now, that these are not guarantees. It's up to us parents and grandparents to instill knowledge and a love of liberty in them. Public schools are definitely not going to do it. By now, you've probably heard of the Tuttle Twins. These books are absolutely blowing up. They teach kids economics, history, and the principles that make a free world. So if you've been waiting for the right time to get the Tuttle Twins books for your family, now is your chance to get an amazing deal. Just go to TuttleTwins.com/Candace and you will get the books for 40% off. Give freedom for your kids and you'll be supporting the all-new Candace Show. That's at TuttleTwins.com/Candace. So go, because I know if you're like me, you read your kids' books every single night. And these are great books to read to your children. Yes, the Tuttle Twins books make the core ideas that build a free and prosperous world simple to understand. And that's all I'm going to say on that topic. All right, guys, now it's time to get into some stories. But first, reminding you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. There really is not going to be many of these Standis Cups left because we are almost at 2 million followers, which makes me so happy. Okay, Okay, just one story really to bring to you guys today, and it is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. It's difficult for me to discuss it because I know people in my life that are going through IVF treatments, and I know these people are not doing it with any ill will in their heart, just with a true desire to start a family. Well, the Southern Baptist Convention formally passed a resolution opposing IVF treatments, and it's obviously caused quite the stir. And their arguments are simply that IVF technology regularly engages in the destruction of human embryos in the process. And of course, this is true. They are saying, quote, "We grieve alongside the couples who have been diagnosed with infertility or are currently struggling to conceive, affirm their godly desire for children, and encourage them to consider the ethical implications of assisted reproductive technologies as they look to God for hope, grace, and wisdom amid suffering, and be it finally." That is what their formal resolution states. Again, this is a very hard topic because, as I said, I have friends that are going through this process, and it's difficult when you are attached to a topic emotionally, like knowing how much they just want to start a family, to really think about the implications of what is being created with IVF and these things that are happening, these moral questions about the fact that, first and foremost, what it has done is it has allowed homosexual couples to have children. What do you believe in? Do you believe in that? Do you think that that provides the best opportunity for children? Of course, it is interrupting the natural biological process. It gives the state a lot more power, right, to decide when somebody can conceive. And my personal opinion is that it has become an industry that has so much immorality that is shrouding it. This is not to say, by the way, because I am sure people listening to this show have gone through this process, that you yourself are an immoral person because you want to have a family. But we always have to weigh things according to good and evil, right? How much good is being brought versus how much evil is being brought into the world. Obviously, the Catholic Church, which I'm a part of, is very strong on this. They have always stood against the concept of IVF. And I, in the beginning, before even thinking about faith many years ago, when I knew someone who was going through IVF, I thought, this is wonderful. This is an opportunity that science can help these people conceive. But then I got further in my thought, and I got further in the study of history, and I've realized that actually it is science that is disrupting their ability to conceive. When you think about all the women that are having issues conceiving, there is a reason for that. So much of that is the natural result of the hormonal birth control pills that they are taking that is disrupting their natural body from working for years before they even get to the idea of whether or not they want to have children, before they even think about that. It's why I have dedicated so much time into creating the Shot in the Dark series. A great time for me to tell you guys who are listening. Many of you have asked, when are you bringing that series back? I'm going to re-record everything, and then sometime in September, I'm going to drop that series. And we were beginning to just get into birth control and birth control history and looking into all of the inserts and what they openly tell you about hormonal birth control that women don't consider when they're 15 and they go to the OBGYN and they tell them, here, take this pill because you have acne. So it's a lot of things. And I think it really all begins with true education, not indoctrination and propaganda, and the ability of thinking that, oh, well, you're going to be able to decide when you have sex and that's the beauty. You're going to have less pimples and that's the beauty of birth control. We got to start thinking more, and we need to be able to pass real education on to our children. All right, guys, we are already somehow out of time, but not before I jump into some of your comments. First up, we have Nash Hill. He or she writes, staunch pro-choice liberal here. Started watching Candace months before an unplanned pregnancy. Let's just say my unborn daughter can thank Candace and these preborn ads for changing my stance on abortion. 8 months down, a lifetime to go. Hang in there, mamas. Keeping your baby is a blessing, even on your own. It's been difficult, but still made the right choice. The right choice is not always the easiest. I love this so much, which of course is the reason that we absolutely should talk about preborn right now. According to a recent report, Planned Parenthood continues to rake in billions despite the dwindling clients. The biggest takeaway is that Planned Parenthood is generating vast profits, which includes millions that are coming from taxpayer funding. We are funding the death of children. It is wrong. It is barbaric. It is like an Aztec civilization. We're sacrificing children, and we're telling mothers that it's okay because you don't want to be bothered by having a child, even though it's the greatest blessing of my life to have children. So what we need to do as the people that are unwittingly funding these via our tax dollars, millions of dollars to support these people, is to make sure that we reverse it in our own capacity, to make sure that we steal the clientele from groups like Planned Parenthood, that we take these babies that they are trying to kill. And Preborn is able to help us do that. They operate on a very slim budget, rescuing over 200 babies' lives every single day with no government funding. Preborn's network of clinics are situated in the darkest corners of the nation, competing head-to-head with the abortion giants, and they need our help now more than ever. When you donate $28 to Preborn, you will offer a free ultrasound to an expectant mother, like the one that you just heard for, that is caught in the crisis. Once she hears that baby's heartbeat and sees that precious life, her baby's chance at life doubles. So sponsor a precious baby's life today. Your tax-deductible gift will go directly towards saving babies' lives. You just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby. Or you can go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. So that's amazing. And that is a real person that is commenting there and saying that Preborn is the reason that made her make that decision, which is why also it's a reminder to us to welcome people that have the wrong ideas, because we all started with the wrong ideas. We're all changing every single day. And we only do that through meaningful conversation and positivity and embracing one another and accepting the challenge of the environment we live in, which is just so much pollution via bad psychology. I also have this message from Connect. I told you guys about this app. It's amazing. It allows people to directly message me, and I'm able to give them an audio message back. Now, of course, that costs a bit of money. I read comments for free, but I do love that if you have a burning question, you want to reach me, that you can join the Connect app and pay a fee, and I just answer. I just answer on audio. Well, this person wrote to me this morning while I was on my walk. Hi, Candace. I stumbled upon one of your answers, which intrigued me. You said in that answer that you have not vaccinated your kids. As a new father of a little girl, this has haunted me for months. I don't want to vaccinate, but I feel pressured to do so by my peers and especially her pediatrician. Thankfully, I opted out of all vaccines at birth. What did you do in terms of their schooling? Homeschooled? Has it been a problem with them joining any sports programs, etc.? Did you claim a religious exemption? And also, how did you find a pediatrician that was willing to work with kids that are unvaccinated? Most of the pediatric practices state they won't work with unvaccinated children, etc. I know it's a delicate subject. You're not a doctor, LOL, but any input would be immensely appreciated. It is precisely that because I am not a doctor that I produce that series, A Shot in the Dark. And it's precisely because I am not a doctor that I hope you know that I am giving you my heart when I tell you what I did with my children. Why on earth would I want to hurt my children? No, I did not vax any of them. There is a reason for that. After doing my research, I had a lot of questions. These are the things that Piers pushed me on last night. What about polio? All of these things. I've done my research and I am certain in the decision that I have made. And I want, as I said to this user on Connect this morning via audio, I basically said to him, I'm bringing back the Shot in the Dark, as I told you guys earlier, but also that my children are young. It matters where you live. I answered him back and asked him where he lived. Here in Tennessee, we actually have laws. We apply for religious exemption, and they have to honor that religious exemption down here in Tennessee. So you have to think about that. Where you are raising your children actually matters. Is it worth getting up and moving so that you can raise your children in a place that has the same values that you have, that believes in medical freedom? For me, it is a definitely yes. There is no way that I was going to vaccinate my children, given the fact that I myself was injured from a vaccine, which is what led me to do so much research for my children. And what I want to say to parents also, trust your gut. Your gut matters, okay? They're always trying to get you to dismiss your gut. That is divine. God is telling you something is right or something is wrong, and they will call that a conspiracy theory. No, your gut is not a conspiracy theory. Pay attention to yourselves and your feelings and your emotions about things. For me, it has always worked out for me in the end. So what I will say to you guys is that tomorrow we will be airing an interview of Brianna Joy Gray. You may have heard this story circulating. Brianna Joy Gray, she used to be the spokesperson for the Bernie Sanders campaign. She is on the left. She then became a host on The Hill. She's been on that network for quite some time, and she is alleging that she was fired because she was not pro-Israel. It's very interesting. Yeah, we should definitely talk about that. So she'll be joining us tomorrow for our Friday episode. It's just going to be an interview with her. And also, guys, some great news. Tucker Carlson has announced that he is on tour. But guess what? I have got some tickets that I can give to you. So right now, the first 10 people that log on to clubcandace.com and buy a signed Standis cup, We are going to be watching this right now on the back end. The first 10 people, we are going to be giving you free tickets to Tucker Carlson. You can see him in Kansas. He'll be in Wichita, Kansas with Charlie Kirk, and Anaheim, California. We have those tickets, and he will be there with Vivek. So go for it, guys. ClubCandace.com. First 10 people to buy a Standis Cup will be getting free tickets to see Tucker Carlson in one of two cities. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow.